We're back here on the Chip Shot Football Podcast to discuss our last wildcard game of today's show. Another rematch from Week 1. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers will host the Washington Commanders again this season, as they did back in Week 1, when the Buccaneers came out on top 37-20 in Jaden Daniels' first NFL experience. That was the first ever game Jaden Daniels played in the NFL. And obviously, the score says what the score says, right? A 17-point defeat doesn't necessarily look great, but, this time around, we could see potentially even more points from this game when we have two of the top 5 NFL offenses going head-to-head. And Tampa Bay arrives in this spot to host a playoff game again after winning 6 of their last 7 games to win the NFC South again, and the Commanders enter also on a 5-game winning streak, not to win the division, but to secure themselves a spot in the playoffs. And obviously that's huge, just because there was a point in time where it got a little bit doubtful with the Commanders, right? They kind of hit a skid there, and it got close between them, maybe the Seahawks, and a couple other teams, flirting around the wild card spots. But they earned themselves this spot by going on that winning streak, like I mentioned, and now it's anybody's game, but I think there's definitely certain advantages that we could find in a lot of these matchups. So with that in mind, we've seen Tampa Bay also in this spot, last year when they also won the division. They were playing also another NFC East rival, and they came out on top in that matchup. But a big difference from last year going into this year as well, according to Baker Mayfield, and I agree with him, is the running game that he highlighted in one of his recent, media gatherings, right? He highlighted the running game and said that it was a big reason why not only they have the success that they're having now, but it's a big difference now going into this year's playoffs. And, you look at the running game for the Buccaneers and you think of Bucky Irving, obviously their rookie running back, and how just sensational he's been for them, quite honestly. Rachaad White, who they had last year, and he might not be getting the volume as he did last year, but he's still having an impact in the running game, but also coming out of the backfield as well and being a good pass-catching option. Sean Tucker, another young running back for them, and even Baker Mayfield, like we saw last week, he's able to get out of the pocket and run for first downs and gain positive yards when he needs to, and he's not afraid also of taking a hit or two when he needs to as well. So the combination of all 4 of those guys really has made a significant difference, because they were one of the worst rushing teams last year. I think they were maybe 30th or something like that, or 29th. And now this year, they're 3rd in the NFL in yards per carry. So that's a huge jump, obviously. And it's even more significant in this game when they're playing a Washington Commanders defense that enters as the worst-ranked run defense of any playoff team currently, right? The Commanders rank 30th against the run out of all the playoff teams. That's obviously the worst one. And the Buccaneers, on the other side of things, if we want to compare them, they're the 4th-ranked run defense. So that's a big, difference in terms of the defense and how well they hold up against the run, obviously. And going up against all 4 of those guys, like I mentioned, is not going to be an easy task for the Commanders. It could go sideways very quickly if they don't stop that running game. But before we continue on, kind of projecting and looking at the matchup and these teams more closely, we got to talk about some of the injuries that could affect this game, and, some positive news as well as some concerning things, I would say, for each team. One of them being for Tampa Bay, their cornerback Jamal Dean has been a limited participant this week in their practices. He was dealing with a knee injury, and he could have a chance to play for the first time since December 29th. It's been a good amount of weeks since they've had Jamal Dean, which I believe is their best cornerback out there on the field, and he could be a massive help, obviously, going up against Terry McLaurin. And maybe not the biggest names at wide receivers, but it's definitely going to help out, obviously, knowing that you don't have to worry so much about one side of the field. Jamal Dean, I'm looking at it now at his updated injury status. He was a full participant today at practice, and he is listed as questionable for the game this upcoming Sunday, but after logging a full participation in practice, it makes me feel even more confident that they're going to have their top cornerback out there for their first playoff game. So that's going to be huge for them. And speaking about number one cornerbacks, on the other side of things, the Commanders have Marshawn Lattimore, and he's missed the last couple games as well with a hamstring injury that kind of flared up again. But he's been a full participant all week, and he is definitely going to be out there for them, which is huge because their pass defense isn't necessarily as great as their run defense. So having a guy like Marshawn Lattimore out there, I would say even more than Jamal Dean, is that number one shutdown corner. So that's going to be huge for them. Also, on the side of the Washington Commanders, you look at their center, or their supposed starting center, Tyler Biadasz, who has been dealing with a ankle injury up until this point. So that is something to kind of look out and see what the status is on him. If I can find it now, any updated version of him. I mean, he has no injury designation as of right now. He was in and out of the game last week, I want to say, so he's been a limited participant all week at practice, and now he doesn't have an injury designation. So it looks like he's going to be out there. Obviously, a massive contribution for the offensive line, but also a rookie quarterback that would love to have his starting center out there. So that's more positive news for the Commanders. And Tristan Wirfs and also Antoine Winfield, two of the most important players for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, were having an eye out on them this week for, the injuries and stuff like that. Tristan Wirfs, obviously, a huge piece for them on the left tackle side of things. He was a limited participant all week, dealing with a quad injury, but he has no injury designation, so he should be good to go. And on the other side, like I mentioned, Antoine Winfield, he is listed as questionable going into this game, but he was a full participant on Wednesday and Thursday, and he hasn't played since December 8th, actually. So he recorded another full practice today, but he's still listed as questionable. But after a whole week of fully practicing, I expect him to make his return to that Tampa Bay Buccaneers secondary. So a lot of returns, a lot of positives for this injury report for the Sunday night football game, which is great to see. So now we could bring this last preview here to the things I want to see. Two goals that I'd like to see in this game, one from each team, in order for them to get the victory. Starting off with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, for them, I would like to see them try and keep Jayden Daniels from running as much as he's been accustomed to over the last couple weeks, right? There's no surprise that the Commanders have such an efficient running game, and also when you look at their running numbers, their quarterback is actually their leading rusher all season, and it's obviously unusual, kind of more of a bother, right? Obviously kind of accounting for the quarterback and trying to keep him from taking off for like 20, 25 yards. So if the Buccaneers are able to keep Jayden Daniels in the pocket and really limit this Washington Commanders defense to only Brian Robinson and not too much after that, it's going to help them a lot more. And already with them having an okay run defense, I mean, their run defense actually is fourth, I forgot to mention. So they have the fourth ranked run defense. So you can kind of, feel good about your chances going up against the defensive line and their running back, but adding a quarterback in there obviously makes it a lot more difficult. So if they could go in there with a set goal of trying to keep Jayden Daniels in the pocket, I mean, he's extremely accurate, but at that point, you're forcing kind of other guys to not only get open, but get open quickly and making sure they win their battles, right? Guys like Zacchaeus and Jamison Crowder and Zach Ertz, right? If Jayden Daniels just can't run and get first downs, they need to get open a lot more at an efficient level to help him out. So I think that's going to be huge for the Buccaneers if they're going to be able to limit Jayden Daniels and take away his legs, basically. And then for the Washington Commanders on the other side, try and take as much as what the defense gives you. And what I mean by that is the Buccaneers usually don't play a lot of like in your face man coverage, kind of bump and kind of shadow you, all game long. They usually give you a good amount of space and just try not to get beat deep and things like that. So for them, even if it does seem a bit monotonous and just kind of simple, and I don't like to say the word boring, but just kind of like taking the checkdowns and basically taking what the defense gives you, I think doing that, at least at the start, would benefit the Commanders, just so you get Terry McLaurin involved a lot quicker, you get the passing game involved a lot quicker, and maybe you get guys going like Zacchaeus and maybe like a Luke McCaffrey or something like that, or Jamison Crowder, and even Zach Ertz, right? You get those guys in the game a lot earlier, and that could benefit you, right? If you're doing that a lot, then you force the Buccaneers to kind of maneuver off of that. Maybe they come up a little bit closer, and they're not the best in the passing game, as opposed to their run defense, which is pretty well ranked. Their passing defense isn't that good, so they just don't have the guys for that, really. So if they're able to do that, I think that would be a huge point for them to try and win this game. And in that same breath, we're moving on to the matchups now, and like I mentioned before, one of them is, like I just mentioned actually, the Washington offense going up against the Buccaneers' 29th ranked passing defense, right? They're ranked like that for a reason. They try not to give up the big plays, try not to lose the down or the play in just one single, throw over the top. They'll try to make you earn it and really earn your way down the field, right? Not getting beat deep, conservative, keeping everything in front of you, and I think that could benefit a quick passing game that Cliff Kingsbury brings, especially when you got a quarterback as accurate as Jaden Daniels. So that's one of the matchups I want to see, and see how maybe the Bucs try to switch things up, how early they do that, and how successful they are at doing that as well. But the other matchups are also mentioned before: the Buccaneers runners, the rushers, Sean Tucker, Bucky Irving, Rashad White, all those guys against Washington's run defense. It's as simple as that, right? We have a team that really wants to run the ball and a running defense that's not very good. Whatever comes out on top is going to be a huge determinant in this game. And of course, the main event. The main event, to me, the main event matchup is obviously Mike Evans and Marshawn Lattimore. I don't think I have to say much. If you guys have ever seen Mike Evans play against the Saints, and especially when Marshawn Lattimore was there, you can find it anywhere, how those matchups usually ended. You got guys shoving each other, getting into fights, a lot of contact, at the point of attack before, the ball comes their way. It gets very physical, and I wouldn't be surprised if it led to that at some point in the game on Sunday Night Football. They know each other very well. I don't know if they like each other or if it's just competition or anything like that. It doesn't look like it. So that's going to be awesome to watch, right? They're competitors. They're trying to, it's do or die. So it's Mike Evans against Marshawn Lattimore. That's going to be an awesome matchup. And in terms of who's winning this game, I had a really tough time picking it because you get Antoine Winfield back. You have Tristan Wirfs. It looks like you're gonna have Jamal Dean back. But I couldn't, for whatever reason, write the Buccaneers down as my winner. I just couldn't do it. I wanted to write them down. My head is telling me to pick the Buccaneers, but I think Jaden Daniels could be one of those guys. Like one of those Patricks and Lamars, right, where you win because of them. You win because Jaden Daniels is just simply on your team and he's doing Jaden Daniels sort of things. Is it too early to say he's that kind of quarterback? Yes, but I'm also, not directly saying he's Patrick Mahomes. I think there's some signs that he can get there, and I think getting a win on the road like this is not out of the realm of possibility. And I started getting a little bit more confidence in him, especially when he beat the Eagles at home in Washington. I know Jalen Hurts didn't play, but he still had to face that defense. And the way he played, accounting for 5 touchdowns, I think this could be one of those, early career playoff defining kind of legacy moments for Jaden Daniels. I think he's that kind of quarterback. So I'm going to go with the Commanders to win this game. I think they're just going to win because of Jaden Daniels, simply as that. He's going to will their way to a victory, and they're going to get a road victory, and then they're going to play on the road again against whoever ends up winning in all the other matchups. So that's really my only one that, for some reason, I'm liking the Commanders. I think they have the guys to do it, especially if they get one or two lucky breaks. Just having Jaden Daniels, I think, is going to be enough for them. So those are all the predictions from yesterday and today. We'll see how it all turns out on Monday. But for right now, we're going to move on to a similar topic we talked about yesterday, looking at all the important players for each playoff team, this time in the NFC. So we're going to shift our focus to that when the show returns in just a few seconds.